start with saying some few words about Boehringer Ingelheim first. We are a family-owned pharmaceutical companies. We were founded in 1885 in Ingelheim, that's close to Frankfurt in Germany. We have a focus on human pharma, animal health, and biopharmaceutical contract manufacturing. With around 50,000 employees worldwide, we are one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. If you compare our R&D expenses of around 4 billion euros to our net sales of 21 billion euros, you see there's a lot of focus on innovation. And this is also one of the reasons why Boehringer Ingelheim was one of the first pharmaceutical companies to decide to build up a quantum computing team. Today we have 4 dedicated quantum computing researchers in our team. We have 2 papers published, 2 papers in review, and we were also the first pharmaceutical company to partner with Google Quantum AI. Our first task at the quantum computing lab at BI was to identify possible quantum computing use cases inside the company. And for that, we had a look at the pharma value chain. So here you can see research, preclinical development, and clinical development. In research, we thought about enhancing the simulation of molecules over time by the use of quantum computing, so-called molecular dynamics simulation, or to better predict binding affinities by the use of quantum computing. These calculations are heavily based today on classical quantum chemistry calculations and are very close to the natural application of quantum computers where you want to simulate other quantum systems. Then we also found possible use cases in preclinical development where you can think of better predict absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion of molecules, so-called ADME properties, and currently a lot of machine learning is used for that. In clinical development, we could think about better predict side effect of drugs, and there also machine learning is currently used. Then we also have potential further use cases, for example, in the field of optimization, where we could think about find better solutions to the trial site selection problem or to the patient selection problem. While we hope that we'll also find quantum computing advances in machine learning and to solve optimization problems, we believe that the first application of quantum computers will really be in enhancing quantum chemistry calculation. And this is also our focus. So our focus is we want to find better quantum chemistry on quantum computers. And the first question you can ask when starting this endeavor is, what is actually the cost of calculating a single constant energy on a fault-tolerant quantum computer? People looked at this question before. A very prominent example is the FEMO cofactor, which was heavily studied over the last years in quantum computing as well. And people tried to estimate how many quantum gates and how many qubits would I require to run this in the future on a fault-tolerant quantum computer. And the last, most recent estimate was done by Chunho Lee and the Google group, and they say we need something like 4 million physical qubits and a few days of runtime to simulate the FeMoco molecule. And what we did now also together with Google was to do a similar study, but on a pharma-relevant molecule. Here we chose the P450 compound 1, a very important enzyme in the human body, and we found a similar estimate. So we also require something around 4 to 5 million qubits and 3 days of runtime to get the constant energy of that system on a future fault-tolerant quantum computer. If you compare these numbers, millions of qubits, to what we have right now on small-scale quantum computers, tens to hundreds, you see there's a gap. But let's be optimistic and let's assume that at some point we'll have this quantum computer with millions of qubits, which is able to do this simulation on these molecules in the future. Would this mean that we would then have a quantum application in the pharmaceutical industry? To answer this question, I would like to discuss 2 things. First of all, good use cases. The problem we face right now is that most real-world molecules in the pharmaceutical industry are actually very well described with classical methods on classical computers. For example, DFT, MP2, or coupled cluster methods. There we only know a few examples where we actually would really benefit from a quantum treatment of these molecules, for example, the P450. But the question for us still is, are there many examples like the P450 where quantum computers could really make a difference? If we cannot find such example, we have to rethink how we would use quantum computers in the pharmaceutical industry. So what we would have to do is to think about enhancing these approximate methods with quantum computer. So if you could be able to find a speed up also for approximate methods, this would definitely broaden the scope of applications for the pharmaceutical industry. A second topic for us is what to calculate actually. What I showed you before, the P450 and the FeMoco, was the calculation of a single point energy. So of one constant energy of an isolated molecule. And this is also what most research is currently focused on, making this kind of simulations faster and better on quantum computers. However, such single point energies are not very interesting for us from an application point of view. What we require is computations on up to millions of configurations. And if you now think about running this 4-day calculation on 4 million qubits millions and millions of times, this is a very long calculation in the end. Moreover, we also need observables beyond just the constant energy. For example, we require forces to do MD calculations, or we also require thermodynamic quantities. And after all, also our molecules are not in isolation, but they are inside the body, they're in some solvent, and at the end of the day, we also have to treat the solvent effects somehow with the quantum computer. So we at BI now try to push these questions forward, and we try to do applied research to bring quantum computing closer to a real application for us. One first project we did was we tried together with Google to use quantum computers also to enhance molecular dynamics. Our idea was the following. We didn't just want to use the quantum computer to calculate the constant energy of the system, but we also wanted it to use to calculate the forces on the nuclei of the molecules. So what we did there is we wanted to use the forces to move then the atoms over time, and this is clearly an iterative procedure where you calculate the forces, you move the atoms, and then you have to calculate the forces again, and if you do this often enough, you get your MD simulation. Why do we want to do that? Because it's very important in pharma applications, for example, to sample conformers, also to get thermodynamic quantities, but also forces can be used to optimize the geometry. Our question in this project was, how expensive is this actually on a quantum computer? And we did this for both the NISQ and the FTQC regime, and what we found is that calculating the forces is comparable to calculating the energy of the system. But this is a really bad outcome of this project, because this would mean that if we would now use this for really doing molecular dynamics, we would have to do this millions to billions of times, because in regular molecular dynamics simulation, we'd need millions to billions of time steps. And such a calculation would take many, many years, even on a fault-tolerant quantum computer in the future. So the outcome here was we really need to go beyond force calculations to enhance MD calculations on quantum computers, and we have to rethink how we would do MD on quantum computers. Another topic we are very interested in is the calculation of more accurate binding affinities. This tells us how well does a ligand bind to a protein, and with that we can determine the efficacy of a drug and also determine the dose we have to give to the patient. The first step towards calculating binding affinities is to calculate interaction energies. And interaction energies can be pretty easily understood when looking at a supermolecular approach. So what you see here on the left-hand side is the interaction energy, which is given by the energy of the dimer system, so the system composed of the protein plus the ligand, and you subtract the both monomer energies, so the energy of the ligand and the energy of the protein. And this gives you the interaction energy of the system. The challenge here is that you have to run also a quantum chemistry calculation on this large dimer system, and then you also have the problem that you require enormous precision on your parts. Because if you imagine that these energies are typically in the order of 1,000 kcal per mole, but the interaction energy is way smaller, you have to be very precise on the energies to get a precise interaction energy out. An alternative is to look at the symmetry adapted perturbation theory, or SAPT, where you calculated the interaction energy over a perturbation of the interaction between the two monomers. So what you do is not calculating the supermolecular approach, but you solve the both monomer parts and then just treat the interaction as a perturbation on top. And with this sub approach, you can calculate the interaction energy. And the benefit is that you have no propagation of errors because you don't subtract energies. And you also get insight into the energy contributions in the sum. And this was a problem or a project we looked together with QCIBER on, and we wanted to find out whether we can enhance this, this classical sub method also by using quantum computing. So what we did together with QCIBER is we developed a scheme to use the output from a NISQ device to find better sub energies. The idea is the following. We use the quantum computer here, highlighted by blue and on the left-hand side, to calculate the ground states of the both monomers. And if you now then get a 1 and 2 RDM back from the quantum computer, you can put them into your classical post-processing, which is the SAPT algorithm, to calculate the energy. The benefit of this approach now in quantum computing is that you are not, you don't have to calculate now a quantum computation on this large diamond system, but you can stick to the smaller monomer systems, and with that also typically reduce the errors of your quantum computation. So if at some point in the future, this quantum computer would be able to solve the monomer systems, we could use this directly to also input this to the SAPT algorithm and to get out interaction energies. And with that, I would like to come to a conclusion of my talk and would also go back to the question I initially asked: quantum computing and the pharmaceutical industry, is it a perfect match? I would say not yet. We have to do a lot of work to get there. And we have to do a lot of work to generate a real quantum advantage in the pharmaceutical industry. What we have to do is we have to improve algorithm for estimating the constant energy. 4 days of runtime for a single energy is just way beyond what we can really afford. This is too long. We have to bring it down. We also have to think about developing algorithms for other problems we have in the pharmaceutical industry. For example, molecular dynamics. We don't know yet how we would do efficient molecular dynamics on quantum computers. And then also we have to see the predicted hardware development to become reality and start to test heuristics. What I would like to stress also is if you look outside of quantum computing research, there is the perception that quantum computing is already helpful for industry today. And here we strongly disagree. That's not true. What we have to do to get there is we have to spend years of basic and applied research on this topic to really find a quantum advantage in the pharmaceutical industry. And here the danger is that the current hype around quantum computing could really also destroy this technology, which is in its very first steps. If you liked what I talked about today, and if you would also like to work on applied quantum computing research in the pharmaceutical industry, we currently have one position to fill as a quantum computing scientist, so please feel free to scan this QR code and to apply. And with that, I would like to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michael. Very, very interesting talk. Are there any audience questions? Yes. Let me actually give you the mic.
Okay. My name is Yi Li from Sanofi. I was just wondering, how is your SAPT approach versus free energy perturbation?
So this is just to get out the interaction energies. It's not about entropic parts, so it's just about getting the interaction energies out. So this would be a further step in looking on how we would be able to get from the interaction energies closer to the binding affinities, but therefore we would also have to include entropic parts at some point.
Another one? Yeah. Do we have an extra mic or maybe? Thank you. No. I think we need to turn it on. 1 second.
Hello? There we go. Thank you. Great talk. So a quick question, given that it's going to take a long time for quantum computers to become useful, could they be used for small interactions like for refining force fields for molecular mechanics calculations to make those more efficient? And if they could, how much of a difference would that really make?
Yeah, it's hard to tell how much difference it would make, but you could definitely think about using a quantum computer to get some precise energy estimates or some precise forces and then fit the force fields with that. That could be a viable approach, but it's hard to say how much you would gain. People tried this too with classical high-quality quantum chemistry methods and try to make the force field better, but it's hard to say how much it would make a difference. So yeah, definitely something one could try out in the future, but hard to estimate how much you would gain.
Could you think of an experiment that would actually test that, if you could do it?
Not right now. I mean, the quantum computers are still way too small to really get something you wouldn't be able to get from classical computers. So you would have to wait for the large quantum computers to show up and test this.